Okay, first I'm going to add 20 drops. And this is potassium iodide, and I think it's a little bit too light, so I'm going to add a little bit more to darken it up. We had to do this with some of the students. It's because this iodine is old, and when it gets old, it gets lighter in color, but we want to get good results, so we're going to darken it up. Put this back on. I have this membrane that's going to act like the cell. It's actually hollow, and it's usually like, it reminds you almost like ribbon when you're wrapping ribbon around gifts. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in water. I'm going to get it all nice and soft. And it does take a little bit longer. Usually you're sitting here for a couple of minutes, but I did this already. I'm going to tie a knot in the end, because if it's a cell, I don't want things to come out of the cell. So I'm going to get it wet a little bit more here. And while I'm waiting, I'm going to add, it says in your instructions, 15 milliliters of each. I'm going to just add 10. So this one is glucose. I'm going to add 10 of that. And normally these are pre-measured for you guys, but my little assistant here is helping me out tonight. I'm going to add 10 of this. And like I said, your instructions will say, and this is glucose, by the way, so it's okay that they go together. And then I'm going to pull this out. And like I said, this is like a cell. So I'm going to open this up. And this is the only part that's a little bit hard. Okay, so I think I'm getting it. And usually if you have trouble getting this open, what you have to do is you have to keep putting it back in the water. So you can see it's like almost like a little tube here. So I'm going to pour this in it. I'll let this go down. And once it gets in there, it'll start to sink to the bottom. And this is representing like my cell, and the outside is sort of like the membrane. So we're wanting to see how things go in and out of the membrane. So remember what I did is I added starch and I added glucose, and I'm going to tie a knot because this is my cell. And I want to rinse that out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into my container, and I'm going to let it sit for 15 minutes, and we'll be back. Minutes of letting it sit, you can see that what was once glucose and starch still has a little bit of glucose and starch, but the iodine, potassium iodide from in here got into the tube, reacted with the iodine in the starch, reacted with the starch, and actually changed it to a dark color. The last thing I want to do is I want to test for glucose, and if there is glucose present, it's going to change this color. So if I let it sit long enough, what will happen is glucose will test positive at this point. So that tells me that the molecules of iodine that were in here were small enough that they can get through this membrane, react with the starch and change it color. The glucose molecules inside were small enough to get out and cause a positive test for that in the cup. And lastly, the iodine, which is inside here, or I'm sorry, the starch, which is inside here, is too large of a molecule to get out. Because if the starch come out, this color would turn black as well. Water will do the same thing. Water will keep moving in and out. So we will have osmosis occurring here and diffusing occurring.